Today is March 15th, 2014, and we are here in Goldsboro, Pennsylvania to interview World War II veteran Mr. Paul Demciak, born on September 15th, 1922. I'm Amber Peiffer, and this is Lillian Petty here at Mr. Demciak's residence. Also present at the interview is Deborah Petty and James Fritz. Let's begin. Would you please describe some of your childhood?
What's that?
Please describe some of your childhood.
Describe so much? Well, I grew up in the coal region, in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and my father always kept us working. We had to chop wood, we had to pick coal and things, and then we used to, in the wintertime, we'd have to shovel snow for our neighbors, like older people. We'd have to shovel their walks, and that was about it. We used to play baseball, hardball, with just a piece of wood and a homemade baseball out of string, So, we were pretty poor at that time, but I enjoyed life. Life was nice. Everybody was friendly, Everybody's really nice. There was no animosity against one another, Matter of fact, I went to school with a couple of black boys. We used to play basketball together. But today people got so much resentment against them. Me, I have no resentment against them. Matter of fact, when I got shot in my right arm here, and that boxcar was in, there was a French Singhalese soldier. He was black. He picked me up and carried me out of the boxcar. Now I can't, I don't hate black people. I don't hate no people. I try to be nice and get along with everybody. Life is too short, and there's too many nice people in this world. So if you meet somebody bad, you just stay away from them, Yeah. So you try to be as compassionate as you can with everybody,
Do you have any other siblings?
I can't hear.
Do you have any other siblings?
Do you have any siblings?
Any children? No.
Brothers and sisters?
No.
Okay. What were you doing before you were drafted into the Air Force?
Army.
Oh, Army.
Say I can't hear.
What were you doing before you were drafted in?
What was I before I was drafted?
Yeah.
I was working in New Jersey. I was a crane operator for Johns Manville in Manville, New Jersey. I was a crane operator. Then I was drafted, and then I went in the Army.
Okay.
Did you have any other family members that served in the military?
Did what?
Did you have any other family members that served in the military?
Oh yeah, I had four brothers. I had 7 brothers. 4 were in the Navy. They were in the South Pacific. One was on the USS Barnegat. One was on the USS Atlanta. One was on the USS Princeton. It was sunk in the Leyte Gulf. The other one was on the USS Missouri when the Japanese surrendered the treaty. 4 were in the Navy, and I'm the baby. I was in Europe, and they were in all the South Pacific.
When did you enter the service?
November 1942.
What were your feelings when you were told your division?
My what?
What division you're going to serve in? Your rank?
My rank? I was a corporal. But then later on, after I come back from Normandy, I wrote a letter to I sent a telegram to him, and he promised me another stripe. I was promoted to sergeant.
How did you get to your training camp?
Talk louder.
Okay. How did you travel to your training camp?
How? Well, I left from New Cumberland, Pennsylvania. We went by train all the way to Texas, and I took my basic training in Abilene, Texas.
Describe a day in training camp.
Huh?
Describe a day in training camp.
Well, it was in Texas. It was hot and dusty, very hot and dusty. And then you had to be careful going to bed at night because the snakes used to crawl in to try to stay cool under your blankets. But it was hot and dusty there. I always say that's the only place in the world you can stand in the mud up to your knees and the wind will still blow dust in your eye. A lot of dust. Everything is dry.
How well did you adapt to basic training?
Oh, I enjoyed it. I didn't mind it a bit because when I was young, my father had us cutting wood, go pick coal, do this, do that, shoveling our neighbors, older people, sidewalks and everything. So my basic training was nothing. It was simple to me.
How much specialized training did you need to become a
What's that?
paratrooper?
How much what?
How much specialized training did you have to have?
For what?
Depending.
To become a paratrooper.
Oh, basic training was just normal. You know, marching, have to go out and bivouac, and they show you how to go out in the woods and dig foxholes and things like that. And it was just normal, and how to handle a gun. And it was all in discipline. That was it. They want to teach you discipline.
So how much specialized training did you have to have? And what was that like?
Well, after when I was in basic training, I volunteered for the parachute troops. And then I was sent to Fort Benning, Georgia, and that was specialized training. I become a parachutist. There's my citation right up there. You have to pack 4 parachutes. You go there for 4 weeks, and it's real strenuous training. Every morning before breakfast, you'd have to run around the airfield on it. It was like 9 miles. You run around the airfield every morning before you even ate breakfast. So training was good, but I didn't mind it. I enjoyed it. I think I weighed about 140 pounds, so I didn't mind it a bit.
What were you supplied with? Like food, items, weapons? Like what were you supplied with?
What were you supplied with?
What?
What were you supplied with?
In training camp. Like what
Like-
did you get?
What type of weapons were you
Oh,
issued in?
A 30 caliber carbine. It's a small one, about that big. It's had a folding stock on it. 30 caliber carbine.
And a trench knife.
Okay. Can you describe your first combat mission?
Well, that was the only one.
That was the only one.
Was before I went to them. I was in Nottingham, England. My first sergeant called me. It was on a Saturday, and he said the commander wants to see you. I went up to see him, and he said, "Paul, I need a man for a special job." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "Well, I can't tell you." I said, "Well, that don't make sense." I said, "Well, I seen a man sitting in a chair, a lieutenant." And I said, "Well, okay, I'll volunteer." He said, "Well, you go pack your bag. You're going to go with him. You're going to be a pathfinder." I said, "Hey, that's a suicide mission. Because a pathfinder, you jump behind the enemy lines before anybody else gets there, you know." So I volunteered for it. I went back, got my bag. I couldn't tell my buddies where I was going. I told them I was arrested for being AWOL, and they said, "We don't believe you. You're telling a fib." But I went back. I packed. And before I left, I got to well, it was a tent, but the bottom part was wood. The door I closed the door, I went back, and I says, "Major, could I have a couple of cigars?" I took a couple of cigars, and the major says to the lieutenant, "See this guy here, he's really aggressive." I said, "Well, wait a minute. You're a major, he's a lieutenant. Don't you think I should be promoted to about 3 or 4 stripes?" Well, he said, "I'll tell you what, we'll make you a corporal now. If you come back, we'll make you a sergeant." I said, "Thanks a lot." So that was it. And that was the last I saw of him. That's his picture up right there. He retired as a general.
Can you please describe your experiences leading up to your capture?
What's that?
Can you please describe your experiences leading up to your capture?
Can you talk about your experience period up to your capture, Paul, before you were captured?
What do you mean, Well, we did a lot of training, Pathfinder. We made a lot of night jumps to set up this thing called the Eureka. It would send a signal to the airplane would pick the signal up, and that's what the rest of the main body would make a jump on a drop zone, you know. But I didn't mind it a bit. It was, to me, I enjoyed the service, you know. I didn't mind it a bit. I like, and the men I were with were always, they're all different walks of life, you know. They're like myself.
Were you afraid when the Germans took you prisoner?
What's that?
Were you afraid when you were taken
Is
prisoner?
the sky blue? Yes, because I'll tell you why. I was captured in the morning. I was wounded with a grenade in one side. In the afternoon, I got wounded with another in my leg. But before I was captured, this fellow had a pair of binoculars. I said, let me look at them. And I looked at this couple of them soldiers hit in the brush. I could see them. And I described the 2 lightning things. And I said, oh boy, we're in trouble. They're SS troops, you know. Yeah, oh yeah. Then that's when I threw my carbine, a knife, in a brush because they said there was only about 8 or 9 wounded there. I was patching some of them guys up, but I said to the guy, throw your rifles away, because I heard a guy told me from the 505 in Italy they would take their own gun and shoot you. So I threw my brush, and when they come in, they were machine gunning all around. They shot a couple of guys in the leg and stuff, but I didn't get hit. But anyhow, I was already wounded. My leg and my back was wounded from shrapnel from grenades. Oh yeah, I was afraid. That's right. The sky is blue. I was scared. There's no heroes right there.
Where were you taken after you were captured?
I was taken to a place called Rennes, France. They took me to a hospital. There was a prison camp right there, prison camp Stalag 221. I was in there for a while. They took me in there, they examined me. The doctors looked at my back, the shrapnel. What they did, they made a couple of cuts, no anesthesia, nothing. They just cut my skin and took the shrapnel out of my back. And they said, we don't want to take, it was in the muscle here, they couldn't get that. But in my back, they got 3 or 4 pieces of shrapnel out. And then they took from there, right next door was the camp, 221. They put us in this camp. We were only there a short time, but then we had to move because the invasion was coming in from the beach, and the Americans were advancing towards Rennes. That was Rennes, R-E-N-N-E-S. And then they put us in trucks, and then we only went so far. We'd get strafed, and we'd have to get out of the trucks and walk. So the next day they put us in boxcars, and they kept going and going. We got to a place called Angers, right out of Tours, France. That's when the Americans come over. The boxcars were covered with branches and things to try to camouflage them, but the P-47s come in, they strafed the engine, they blew the engine up, they strafed, and that's when I got hit in the arm with a 50 caliber bullet. And that's when I said that black man picked me up, you know. The Germans opened the doors and we all got out. And then I was trying to get away. Me and a couple others started to run toward, they threw a couple of grenades. I got hit in the back again with a small piece of grenade.
What were your meals like in the camp?
There was no meals. All we got was some kind of soup, bread made out of sawdust and stuff. It's in that paper that you have, you know.
Yeah.
There was nothing. The soup was just plain water, greasy water, that's all. No, the bread was made out of sawdust and hay, and it was terrible. We didn't get much to eat at all. I weighed 160 pounds when I jumped. When I escaped, I weighed 98 pounds.
How long did it take for all your wounds to heal?
Oh, they took almost, well, I was wounded in 44. It took almost 2 years to get it healed up. My arm and the heels, these other things healed up fast. But this was the worst because I found out, they told me later when I got back after I escaped, they told me I had osteomyelitis, it's like cancer of the bone. And that took quite a while. And I took penicillin for about 1.5 years, and they said it was cured. They were going to discharge me and send me to the VA. I said, I don't want to go. I said, I want to stay until you fix that. I went home and saw my family doctor, and he says, let me do some check. He was in the Normandy invasion. He told me, go back and tell him you want to go to Woodrow Wilson General Hospital in Stanton, Virginia. There's an Army surgeon wants to look at that arm. He thinks he could fix it. So I said, okay. So I went back to Fort Dix. I was in Fort Dix in a hospital there. And they gave me the necessary paperwork. They drove me to the railroad station, and I got down to Stanton, Virginia. When I got down there like 3 in the morning, the doctor come in, they looked at it. They did blood work, they did samples and everything. He said, we're going to operate. So what they did 2 days later, they took a bone out of there. See, the bone was shot out like that. And they made like a bridge across there with 4 screws. And thank God, you know, it all come out good. I saved my arm. Because when I got wounded, when the Germans had me in tours in a hospital, they were going to, I heard the one doctor go like this. I said, nix, nix. I says, I could still move my fingers. They said, okay. So what they did, they put a wire ladder splint on it, and they didn't have bandages, they had crepe paper. But anyhow, after I escaped, when I got back, we got down to a place called Toulouse. We were there tours for a little while. Then we were forced march. We had to walk a few more 100 miles, and that always come to about 600 miles. And we got to Toulouse, France. That was the end of August. And then we were there like 1 or 2 days, and the man in the hallway was French. This one Englishman was a prisoner with us. He could talk French. He said to him he's going to get in touch with the underground and see if we can get us out of there. So the next morning, the 4th, or the 3rd or the 4th of September, we heard some gunshots in the hallway. The underground came in, they shot the guards, threw them down the elevator shaft. They took 9 of us prisoners out of there. It was a big hospital. They went out 3 different entrances, 3 different ambulances, 3 in one, 3 in another, and they went right. They were blowing a siren. They went right by the German guards at the gate. It kept going, and they hit us in a warehouse like the night of the 4th, the morning of the 5th. They says tomorrow morning there's going to be a plane call. It's for English Special Air Service. An English pilot volunteered to bring a C-47 in. He came in. He landed in a field outside of Toulouse. The underground kept the Germans away. There's only a couple shooting, but it was dark. It was early in the morning, and this plane landed. The lights were, the trucks were lined up there, very little lights on them, so they could see where there was no, it's just grass. They landed there. We got on board. 9 of us got on board. They were all wounded, and they took off. And we left a couple of gunshots through the plane, the wings, and all that. Then we landed in Naples, Italy. And that was it. And they examined me, and when they got there, they took all the things off, and the maggots were on my arm. They were eating my dead meat, which was good. They kept my arm from getting gangrene. One of the nurses even passed out. So I said, don't step on them, they're my friends. So that was it. I was there for about 3 weeks, and then they finally shipped, about 3 or 4 weeks, then they shipped me back to the States. To Richmond, Virginia, then I went to Fort Dix. And there they wanted to discharge me. I said, no, that's when I come home. My family doctor says, I'll find out where to get some help. That's when he told me, you can go back and tell me you want to go to Woodrow Wilson General Hospital. And that was it. So I spent almost a year, a little over a year to get that arm better. But I still got it.
Would you elaborate on your trench knife, how your mother come to get your trench knife, Paul?
When I threw my trench knife and my carbine in a brush, because a fellow told me that in Italy, the underground, or the French, German SS would take their own rifle and shoot you. So I said, well, I told the guy, just throw it away. I heard him. I said, I don't know if they did it or not. But I threw the knife in a brush. Well, when I got home, this was a year later, when I got home, after out of the hospital, I got a little bit better, and my mother says, there's a package here for you. Well, it was just, it was addressed to me, and the address in the corner was obliterated. It was ink. It was washed. The rain washed it off. And I opened it up. It was a trench knife. It was a trench knife that I had. And what I did with that, it was leather. I got a nail, and I put my name on it, and I put the 508 on it, And somebody must have found it in my outfit, and they sent it back home to me. And I said, the commanding officer, I sent it to his son down there. He was airborne, down in South Carolina. He's got it down there. That trench knife, he's going to put it in a museum at Fort Bragg. So I had the knife here for the longest time, but I figured, what am I going to do with it? I sent it to him, because it had a little history in it,
What did you miss most about your family and back home? What did you miss most about back home?
When you were away, what did you miss about back home?
Oh, I missed everything. I missed my mother and father and all my friends, and food especially. I missed everything, you know. Just my normal life back home. I never knew. I never knew life could be so horrible being a prisoner.
How did it feel to have survived World War II?
How did it feel to survive?
Oh, I thank God. There is a God. Oh, every day. Well, I'm religious anyhow, but I thank God for surviving.
What was the hardest part of your service? What was the hardest part of your service?
My service.
What was the hardest part about it?
Oh, there was nothing. The basic training was easy for me. In parachute school, matter of fact, I enjoyed it because, see, my father raised us to cut wood and go for coal, do work physically, you know. And the service, I enjoyed it. Matter of fact, when I was at Fort Dix, I wanted to go back. I wanted to stay in the service again. I wanted to stay in the airborne. I said, my legs are all right. And they said, no, you got too much disability. No, I enjoyed the service. I liked it a lot.
Do you have any other details about your military service abroad?
Do you have any other details about your military service abroad?
Nothing. Jimmy, what? Like what? What do you mean?
Any other things you'd wanted to tell us that we didn't ask you?
Anything else you might want to add to what you may have not said?
Oh, no. Well, in Northern Ireland, we got there, it was in January, February. Boy, it was bitter cold. And we were out there in the peat bogs, and the sergeant says, we got to dig a foxhole. I said, you can't dig there. You need dynamite to get, we had to set up a machine gun nest to cover our road. I said, but it was cold. You think Goldsboro's cold. Boy, it was cold there. And then we went from there to England, a place called Nottingham, where Robin Hood is supposed to be. Matter of fact, they have a statue of Robin Hood over there in England. And I enjoyed it over there. The town was nice. The people were pleasant. I enjoyed, I enjoyed being in. And then, like I said, when the sergeant called me up one day, the commander wanted to see me, and that's when he said, I need a volunteer. I said, okay, I'll go. So that's it. But I wanted to make more money to send home for my mother. That was my main objective. That's the reason. Oh, when I took medical, I took my basic training. It was medical, but we trained with carbines. But anyhow, they wanted to send me to school to be a surgical technician. I said, no, I don't want to go. I want to go to airbornes because I want to make more money. So I said, I'm going to go. So after I graduated from parachute school, they sent me to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for 6 weeks for infantry training. So I had to get more training besides my medical training. And that's the reason I think my commander picked me, because I had some medical background and then I had experience with a rifle. So he figured he could use me twofold. I know about wounds and arms and bones and everything. They said to me, you got a very sharp mind for that. And then when I got wounded, I stopped my own bleeding from bleeding to death, and I know how to take care of my wounds. And I patched up a lot of men from the 101st Airborne.
Do you remember the day that your service ended?
Oh, yeah, I was at Fort Dix. I was in a hospital at Fort Dix. Yeah, I remember that. I think, I don't know, I was on the sun porch. One of the men were there was from the 9th Division. His young son was there. He had a young boy, and him and his wife. Well, they were out on the sun porch. So I said to the boy, "Come on with me." I took him to the PX for ice cream and come back, and they were out on the porch, and one of the nurses or a whack come looking for me. He said, "Hey, Paul." They said, your discharge come through. You're going home. I said, well, I said to the little boy, okay, I got to go. The kid gave me a hug, and I went out, and I said to my buddy, well, I'll see you guys. So then I went and packed my bag and everything. But, you know, I said to myself, they give me so much money, you know, a discharge. I don't know what it was all about, but anyway. But, you know, I didn't even take a bus. I hitchhiked from Fort Dix. I come up Route 30 and all that. I hitchhiked all the way to Wilkes-Barre to save the money to give to my mother. You know, I didn't want to waste the money. But when I come home, I was coming up the street, and I looked up the road, and I could see this hound dog. It was my neighbor's. He was only a little pup when I went away, you know. And I hollered to him, Burek. And he stood, they looked, they come running down, they jumped at me. You know, that dog only was a pup when I left, and when I come back, he was big. But he was licking my, and you know, he come home with me, he stayed with me for 2 days. The neighbors called my mother on the phone. She says, what do you want? Let me talk to Paul. Did you see our dog? I said, yeah, he's here with me. He stayed with me for 2 days. The dog was happy. That was my reception, Jimmy.
That was a good one.
How were you welcomed home by your family and the community?
Well, when I come home, like I said, I hitchhiked home. I got a ride into Wilkes-Barre, and I walked home. Nobody even knew I was coming home. The only one the reception I got was from the dog. And some of my neighbors saw me on the street, you know, that was it. There was no band or no music or nobody knew I was coming home, you know. I was just by myself.
Was it hard to adapt when you came home?
Oh, yeah, it was. I had trouble sleeping. I had a lot of nightmares. I drank a lot. I drank a lot of whiskey because this French doctor where I was hiding, he says, when you get back, stay away from the drugs. No drugs, don't, because it'll damage your brain. And I listened to them, and I listened to what they told me. But the VA gave me some drug called Librium, and I tried one of them. Oh, it made my head dizzy. I said, I don't want. I threw them in the garbage. Matter of fact, what I did, I threw them over the fence, the powder, and the turkeys and the ducks were going crazy. The lady says, I don't know what happened to them. I don't know what happened to them animals. But I didn't give them no more. I threw them away. I didn't throw them in the water or nothing. I buried them in the woods. And the coal bank up there. This way they couldn't contaminate anybody's water. But it took me quite a while. It took me quite a while, over a year and a half. I drank and drank, and my mother says, when are you going to quit? I said, okay, I'll quit. So and somebody said, well, why don't you take a civil service test? I went to Corporal High School. I took a test, and I come up third on the list or something. They offered me a job out in Ohio, and I said, no, I didn't want to go there. And then New Cumberland, they want to give me a job. Then I said, I heard about Tobyhanna. So then I was considered. I come to Tobyhanna as a guard when they were just starting to build the Army depot. I was getting $1.20 an hour, $1.20 an hour as a guard, and that's when I started. And then I used to travel from there to Wilkes-Barre back and forth, and then later on, what I did, I moved up there to a hotel. I got a room up there. I stayed there when the Army depot finally was built. I transferred over with them, and I stayed there for a while, you know, and that was it. I stayed, and then I did a lot of studying, different security courses. I took a lot of courses. I went to FBI school, district attorney school, state police schools, and the two investigators asked me, how would you like to become a detective? I said, what do I have to do? Go home and put a suit on, and you'll be a detective. So that was it. I did that, and I learned a lot from them about investigating. But before that, I was a constable. I became a constable, you know, down in Wilkes-Barre. And I served a lot of warrants. I go down and arrest people, you know, for different things, fraud, or notorious misconduct. Wife beaters, fellas used to beat their wives up. I used to go after them fellas. So then when I get up there, but anyhow, going back to the hospital, when I was laying in the hospital with this arm, the man next to me, that guy was from the 9th Division. I had his son with him. He was taking a course in psychology, so I started studying. He said, boy, you've done more in 10 months than I did in a year. So it come in handy. So when I was a detective, I was there like about a year and a half, 2 years. So they sent me to Fort Gordon, Georgia. I become a criminal investigator. When I come back, they promoted me to criminal investigator, and they were going to Vietnam. They wanted me to go with them. I said, no, one war is enough. I don't want to go. So they left. But then they had a battalion and 2 company of troops there, and they had 3,500 civilians. But there were so many different complaints. People, notorious misconduct, people are stealing, people selling lottery tickets, gambling, drugs, all different things. People, guys used to bother girls or something like that. The girls would complain to me. Then I would take the necessary action against the fellow, to correct them or get rid of them. But that was it. It was very interesting. But that psychology that I was taking come in very handy. I enjoyed it very much. But then I was in Wilkesboro. I got married in '58. And then I was married for like 16 years. And then I lost my home in a flood in 1972. And then I moved up here in '73. I was only here 3 years. My wife died. And then I said to myself, well, what am I doing? I found out from my family doctor in Wilkesboro that I had hypertension. He said, you're taking 3 blood pressure pills a day. You're going to die if you don't get off that job. It was too much. I'd have to go to work, and I'd be listening to all these complaints from people, different things that were going wrong. So I said to myself, what am I doing here? So after my wife died, I said, I'm going to quit. So I put my papers in. They said, well, we'll give you some help. And when I wanted help, they wouldn't give me nobody. So I could send somebody out to investigate. They wouldn't give me nothing. So I says, well, okay, I'm going to retire. They said, we're going to give you a promotion. I don't want a promotion. I want to get out of here. And when I get out of there, 6 months later, so I went from 3 pills a day to 2. And after I retired, today I don't take any. But now I'm back on pills because I had a heart attack since then. I've had 2 of them. So I'm getting by, I guess, with my good friends like Jimmy there and other people in town, they help me along. So that's it. I'm still surviving.
What medals were you awarded?
Well, you can see on the wall up there, I got 3 Purple Hearts. I got 2 Bronze Star medals with a V device. And I got the Legion of Honor, the highest reward the French government gives. It's like the Medal of Honor in this country. And then my regiment was awarded another medal. There's a copy of up there called the French Croix de Guerre. That's the 2nd highest award, that certificate up there. My regiment was awarded that for the Normandy invasion, for help liberating Normandy. My regiment was well awarded off. There's 2,200 men from my regiment jumped in Normandy. We lost 1,100 men in Normandy. Just Normandy alone, we lost 1,100 men.
How did you feel about your regiment getting the Croix de Guerre? I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it. I'm butchering the name. Yeah. How did you feel about getting
the French call to go?
Well, getting those medals, actually, when I come back, I didn't even know I got all that stuff until I got in touch with a commanding officer and this and that, and then I guess he must have did the paperwork, and that's when I started getting all those medals in the mail, So that's how I got them. I got them in the mail. He had the War Department send them to me. I didn't even know I had it. I didn't even know I was awarded those things.
What were the wounds exactly that you got the Purple Hearts for?
What happened to you in order to get the Purple Hearts?
What happened?
Yeah.
Oh, you have to get wounded by the enemy.
Well, what wounds were you given them for?
Well, I got wounded. In the morning, I got hit in the leg here with shrapnel. That was one wound. The next day, on my back, I got some shrapnel on my back from another grenade, a hand grenade. Pieces of metal went in my back. That's for the second. And then on August the 6th, when I got this arm here, 3 or 4 of us tried to go, even with this bad arm, I tried to go to the brush, and they threw another grenade at us, and one guy got hit in the leg real bad. I got hit in the back, and I got hit in the neck with some shrapnel, so that was my 3rd wound. But this wound here was done by the Americans. Our own airplanes were straight by our own airplanes. And on September the 7th, I don't know if I said, I was in the truck, and we got straight. I got hit. It didn't hit the bone. It just took some of the meat out, the 50 caliber. It took some of the meat out. I got hit twice by the Americans and 3 times by the Germans.
Do you still think about your service often?
Do you think about your service?
Not too. I try to avoid thinking about it. See, I have some books here. You see here? I just started reading this about World War II. Every so often, I like to go through it and see what really happened, you know, what happened then, you know, but at that time, I didn't, it took me an awful long time to get over it. In other words, the paper that I give you, that my autobiography that I wrote, it took me over 30 years to put that together. Some fella come in from the University of Strasbourg, and he brought his father in. His father was from Normandy. He said, "Hey, Paul, why don't you get him to write your autobiography so he can show it to the girls and kids in college?" And then he said he's a substitute teacher in high school. He wanted to show the kids, you know, what it was all about.
So, what were your views on the World War
What's that?
II? What were your views on World War II in general?
Well, I don't know. I feel that when I was drafted, I figured we had to go because Hitler was doing so much damage and killing people, you know, I don't know, those camps that they were killing people, you know, burning them and everything. I figured we got to go and we have to stop him. That's it. That was it. That was the objective. And that's all. Everybody in my outfit felt the same way. We got to stop this guy. He's nuts. We got to stop him from killing people, you know. That was our objective, to try to stop him. That was the main goal.
What was the significance of the burgundy-colored uniform?
Your uniform? What was the significance of the color?
What?
The significance of the color of your uniform? Was there any special reason why they chose the burgundy color?
We had jumpsuits. Our uniform, we had jumpsuits.
I think what you want to ask Paul is all airborne of the 82nd had a beret that they would wear, and that was a burgundy color. But their combat uniforms, there was a color so they would blend in with the surrounding areas.
Yeah, but ours was. It's the only thing with our uniform. We jumped. They were the regular jumpsuit with the pockets. It was tan. But before, when I was at that Pathfinder school, I said we're going to stand out like a sore thumb. And then there's a picture right there in the middle up there. I put on my face and my hands. I said, you know, we're going to jump behind the enemy lines and we're going to stand out. Your face is light. You're going to stand out, you know. So I had them spray my uniform with that green paint from the airplanes, you know, to keep the camouflage. Because the uniform was tan like this. So everything is green. So you stand out, it would give a target for them, the Germans, to shoot at. So I sprayed my whole uniform. You know, they sprayed my pants, and then I put that black all over my pants. You see my one picture up there. That was taken right there in the middle. In the middle, if you take a look, you got to get up real close to see it. I covered my face, and then everybody else they blackened their face and their hands. But I did it in the afternoon. We're getting ready to go. We didn't go till like 10:30 at night, June the 5th.
Do you think that camouflage could have saved your life?
I think it saved me from getting shot a couple of times. You know, at night it was pretty hard because you couldn't see me. My uniform was dark, you know. But in the morning and the day, when it got daylight, it was even. I blended in with all the green stuff there. See, they didn't have no target to shoot at, and the guys that didn't have anything, I think they would have got shot ahead of me.
Would you have done anything differently?
Huh?
Thinking back, would you have done anything differently?
I don't know. I just figured. I don't know. I don't know if I could have done anything different or not. I volunteered for the paratroops to get more money for my mother. And then when the commander called me up, I volunteered for the Pathfinders so I can get more money if I get any more stripes, you know. No, I think I done what I wanted to do. That's it. I don't think I would have done it. What I did, I think I done the right way. Of course, it was almost the end of my life what I did, you know.
Did you keep a personal diary during your service?
Huh?
Did you keep a personal?
Oh, no, I didn't. No, there was so many, I'd have to carry so many books to write everything that ever happened to me. No, it would be too difficult to write. There was a lot of things that were humorous, and there were things that were sad. Some guys that got injured in regular jumps, you know. You know, some of my friends got hurt and they were discharged, you know. No, it would be too much. I'd have to do too much writing, you know.
So are there any lessons that you learned?
Huh?
Any lessons you learned? Lessons that you learned from your experience?
No.
Do you have any humorous stories to tell us?
Huh?
Do you have any humorous stories?
You remember anything humorous?
Oh,
Little
no.
things that happened?
Well, no, nothing. The only thing, like, when we first got the parachutes, the first couple of weeks of parachute school, you know, they kept telling us, you do a lot of physical training, and they teach you how to pack your parachute. And then, I think, after the second jump, we went down to the airplane, and then there was a plane up in the air, went up. They said, and I think two or three guys jumped out, and there's one guy come down, hit the ground. And they said, see what happens, you know, if you don't pack your parachute? And I said to the guy, I said, well, I hope he has insurance, you know. So one guy said to me, hey, Paul, I said, what? He said, I was in there when I put that in there. That was a dummy that they want to scare you, so to make sure that you do, when you pack your parachutes, that you pack them right.
Well, I think this is the end. Thank you very much for interviewing, and thank you very much for your service, sir.
If there's anything else, you can look at all those medals up there, and then you can look at those. You can look at those pictures there. No, that's about it. I don't. Unless you have something else you want to ask me.